So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Sakura Got Harem with Walking Dead. So let's start the series. Darkness. Complete and absolute. She couldn't see her own hand in front of her face. Her heart rate spiked instantly, years of shinobi training overriding the disorientation. She didn't move. Didn't breathe. Listened. Thump. 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 Her own pulse too loud in her ears. Drag. A sound. Something heavy being pulled across ground. Not close, but not far either. The scrape of it echoed slightly, telling her she was in an enclosed space. A cave. She was in a cave. And in an engich. A moan. Low and guttural. Human but not human. The sound crawled under her skin like nothing she'd ever heard before. Sakura's hand moved to her hip. Empty. No kunai pouch. No weapons at all. She was dressed in her battle gear, the red skirt and sandals, the fingerless gloves, but her tools were gone. Everything was gone. The battle. Memory hit her like a physical blow. Naruto. Sasuke. The endless fighting. The sky cracking open like an egg. Chakra everywhere, wild and destructive, tearing the very fabric of their world apart. She'd been running toward Naruto when the light consumed everything. Sakura. She barely suppressed a flinch. The voice came from inside her own mind, deep and resonant, carrying the weight of ages. She'd heard that voice before, in stories, in legends. Sage of Six Paths? She whispered, her voice barely a breath. I have no time to explain fully. The voice continued, and she could feel the urgency in it, the strain. Your world is gone, Sakura Haruno. Destroyed. I could not save everyone. I could only save you. Gone. The word didn't make sense. Her world couldn't be gone. Team 7 couldn't be. Listen to me carefully. The voice grew sharper, cutting through her spiraling thoughts. Before the end, I gathered the tailed beasts. All of them. They are inside you now, sealed within your chakra network. They agreed to this. They will help you survive what comes next. Sakura's hand pressed against her stomach. She could feel them now that she was paying attention, presences lurking at the edges of her consciousness, massive and ancient. 9 distinct signatures, each one radiating power that should have crushed her. Why? She managed. Why me? Because you have the strongest will. Because you are a healer. Because when faced with destruction, you run toward those you love, not away. The voice was fading now, growing distant. This new world will test you, Sakura Haruno. But you are not alone. Remember that. You are. The voice cut off. The presence vanished. And in the darkness of the cave, Sakura Haruno was alone with 9 demons sealed inside her body, and the sound of something dragging itself toward her. Scrape. Drag. NNNGH. The sounds were closer now. Multiple sources. She could hear at least 3 distinct movements, maybe 4. Her eyes had adjusted slightly, and she could make out the faintest outline of the cave wall to her left. The air moved against her face, a draft coming from somewhere ahead, carrying that rotting smell with it. Sakura pushed herself up slowly, silently. Her body ached like she'd been beaten for hours, every muscle screaming in protest. She ignored it. Pain was information, not limitation. That was one of the first things Tsunade had taught her. You're awake. The voice was different this time, younger, more playful, but with an edge of something ancient beneath it. A second presence brushed against her consciousness. We were starting to worry, another voice added, this one deeper, slower. Thought maybe the strain was too much for your human body. She's tougher than she looks, a third voice observed. I'll give her that. Sakura's hand found the cave wall, rough stone under her fingers. She used it to guide herself away from the sounds, moving deeper into the darkness rather than toward the draft. Instinct told her that rotting smell meant danger. The moaning sounds meant danger. She needed space to think, to assess too. Wait. The first voice again, sharp with warning. Something's blocking that direction. Something big. Sakura froze. Listened. Heard nothing but her own heartbeat and the distant dragging sounds. But the beasts inside her had senses she didn't. She could feel them extending awareness through her, using her chakra network like an extension of their own bodies. There, the deep voice said. 20 meters ahead. A whole group of them, packed tight. Can't go that way. Then I go toward the sounds, Sakura thought back. Toward the draft. Silence from the voices. Then. That's the direction with the most of them, the playful voice said. But they're spread out. Move quietly, move fast, you might make it. Might. Not will. Might. Sakura took a breath, centered herself, and began to move. The cave wasn't natural. She realized that after the first few meters. The walls were too regular, too straight in places. An old mine, maybe, or some kind of excavated space. Her fingers traced the lines where tools had cut into stone, centuries old by the feel of them. The sounds grew louder as she crept forward. She could identify them now, footsteps, but wrong. The shuffle of feet that didn't lift properly. The drag of limbs that didn't work right. And always, that horrible moaning, like people in constant, unending pain. She rounded a corner and saw her first walker. It stood maybe 10 meters away, its back to her. Human once, a man, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing the tattered remains of a uniform she didn't recognize. Its skin was gray-green, mottled with bruises and open sores. One arm hung at a wrong angle, broken and useless. It stood perfectly still except for its head, which turned slowly back and forth as if listening for something. Sakura's hand flew to her mouth to stifle the gasp. She'd seen death before. She'd caused death before. But this was something else. The wrongness of it hit her like a physical force. This thing had been human. This thing was still, in some horrible way, moving, breathing, existing. Don't make a sound, the deep voice warned. They can't see well, but they hear everything. She didn't need the warning. Every instinct screamed at her to be still, to be silent, to not attract the attention of that thing. She pressed herself against the wall and waited. The walker's head stopped moving. For one terrible moment, she thought it had sensed her somehow. But then it turned away, shuffling forward with that horrible dragon gait, and disappeared around the corner. Sakura let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. That, she thought, was not human. Was, the playful voice corrected. Was human. Now it's something else. Something wrong. There are more ahead, the deep voice added. Many more. Can you feel them? She could. Now that she was paying attention, she could sense them, presences scattered through the tunnels ahead, some moving, some still. Dozens of them. Maybe more. What are they? She asked. Dead things that walk, the playful voice said. We can see through your eyes, feel through your senses. This world, it's broken. The air tastes wrong. The chakra here is thin, weak. These creatures are part of that wrongness. We need to get out of here, Sakura decided. Find open air. Figure out where I am. Agreed, the deep voice said. But careful. Quiet. One mistake and they'll all come. Sakura nodded to herself and began moving again. The next hour was the most exhausting of her life. She crept through tunnels that stretched on forever, freezing every time a walker shuffled into view, pressing herself into shadows and alcoves as they passed. Some were close enough that she could have touched them. She could see the details then, the clouded eyes, the slack jaws, the wounds that should have been fatal. One had its entire lower jaw missing, yet still it moved, still it moaned. Another dragged itself on arms alone, its legs twisted and broken behind it. The smell grew worse the closer she got to the surface. Rot and decay and something else, something chemical and wrong that burned her nose and made her eyes water. The draft grew stronger, and with it came sounds she hadn't heard in hours. Wind. Real wind, moving through trees. Almost there, the playful voice encouraged. I can sense open space ahead. Quiet, the deep voice snapped. Something's wrong. Sakura stopped. Listened. Felt. The walkers were closer now. She could see half a dozen of them shuffling through the tunnel ahead, blocking her path to the light she could now see filtering from somewhere beyond. But that wasn't what the deep voice meant. There was something else. A pressure in the air. A wrongness that made her skin crawl. Chakra, she realized. There's chakra here. But it's corrupted, the playful voice finished, all humor gone. Twisted. Like these creatures, but different. Bigger. A sound echoed through the tunnel. Not a moan, a roar. Deep and powerful and utterly inhuman. The walkers heard it too. They stopped their endless shuffling, turning as one toward the source of the sound. And then, to Sakura's horror, they began to move toward it. Not shuffling now, moving with purpose, with speed, their moans taking on a different quality. Run, the deep voice commanded. Now. While they're distracted. Sakura didn't hesitate. She burst from cover, her shinobi training taking over. Her feet found purchase on the stone floor, her body moving with a speed and grace that would have seemed impossible to anyone watching. She wove between the walkers as they lurched past her, their attention fixed on whatever had roared, and within seconds she was through the tunnel and into light. Sunlight, harsh and bright after hours in darkness. She threw up an arm to shield her eyes, skidding to a halt on loose gravel. Behind her, the tunnel mouth gaped dark. Ahead, A world of gray and brown and green. Trees, dead and dying, their branches skeletal against a pale sky. Hills rolling away into distance. And everywhere, the signs of collapse. A car overturned by the side of a road she could see in the distance. Buildings with shattered windows and doors hanging open. The smell of smoke, old and cold, from fires long burned out. And walkers. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Shuffling through the landscape in every direction, all of them moving with that same horrible purpose toward the sound of that roar. What the hell happened to this place? Sakura whispered internally. Nothing good, the playful voice said. Nothing good at all. The roar came again, closer now. Sakura turned toward it and saw something that made her heart stop. A creature. Huge. At least 3 stories tall, maybe more. It walked on 2 legs but was nothing like human. Its skin was gray and peeling, its body bloated and misshapen, its head too small for its massive frame. Walkers swarmed around its feet like ants, and it paid them no attention, just kept walking, kept roaring, its empty eyes fixed on something in the distance. A beast, the deep voice murmured. Like us, but wrong. Twisted by whatever broke this world. Can we fight it? Sakura asked. Silence. Then, reluctantly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Your body isn't ready for our power. Using too much could kill you. So what do I do? Survive, the playful voice said simply. Find shelter. Find food. Find out how this world works. And then, maybe, find a way to make a difference. Sakura stared at the massive creature as it lumbered past, too far away to threaten her directly but close enough that she could feel the ground shake with each step. She thought about Naruto, about Sasuke, about everything she'd lost. She thought about the voices in her head, demons who had chosen to trust her, to help her, to become part of her. She thought about the walking dead that filled this broken world, and the living who must be hiding somewhere, fighting somewhere, surviving somewhere. And she made a decision. All right, she thought. We survive. We learn. We figure out what happened here. And then? Then? The deep voice prompted. Then we see if a shinobi can make a difference in a world without shinobi. She turned away from the massive creature, away from the tunnel that led back into darkness, and began to walk toward the distant road. Behind her, the walkers moaned and shuffled. Ahead, the unknown waited. Sakura Haruno, last of her world, took her first steps into a new one. The road led her to a town. Or what was left of one. The sign at the edge read Milton, in faded letters, and below that, population 2,847. The population now, as far as Sakura could tell, was somewhere between 0 and dead. She walked carefully, keeping to the shadows, watching everywhere at once. The town spread out before her like a corpse, houses with doors hanging open, cars abandoned in the middle of streets, businesses with their windows smashed and their contents looted long ago. A gas station with its pumps torn from the ground. A church with its steeple collapsed into the nave. A school with something written on the walls in what she desperately hoped was paint. Desolate, the playful voice murmured. Even the emptiness feels wrong. Focus, the deep voice said. We need supplies. Food. Water. Information. Sakura nodded and began to move through the town, checking buildings as she went. Most had been picked clean, cabinets open and empty, drawers pulled out and dumped on floors, everything of value long gone. She found a few cans of food in one house, hidden behind a false wall in the basement. Beans and corn and something that might have been peaches. She stuffed them into a backpack she'd found in another house, along with a bottle of water that tasted faintly of plastic. Not bad, the playful voice commented. You're good at this. I'm good at finding things, Sakura replied. Medical training. You learn to spot the details other people miss. She stopped at a hardware store and gathered supplies, rope, duct tape, a hammer, a crowbar that felt good in her hand. Weapons. Not as good as kunai, but better than nothing. She found a kitchen knife in a restaurant and strapped it to her thigh. Found a first aid kit in a clinic and added its contents to her pack. You're thinking like a survivor, the deep voice observed. I'm thinking like a kunoichi. Same thing, different world. The sun was starting to sink toward the horizon when she found something unexpected, a sound. Voices. Human voices, raised in argument. She moved toward them instantly, silent as a shadow, her new knife in her hand. The voices came from a house at the end of a cul-de-sac, one of the few that still had its doors intact. Through a window, she could see movement, multiple people, at least 4 or 5, gesturing angrily at each other. Can't just leave them out there, a woman's voice shouted. We can and we will, a man's voice, harsh and scared. That horde is heading this way. We stay, we die. We have supplies here. Walls. If we can just hold out. There's too many. You saw them. They'll tear through these walls like paper. Sakura crept closer, pressing herself against the side of the house. Through a gap in the curtains, she could see them, 5 people, 4 men, 1 woman, dirty and exhausted and scared. They had weapons, guns, mostly, and a few knives. They had supplies stacked in corners. They had a fire burning in a barrel in the middle of the room. And they had no idea she was there. What do we do? The playful voice asked. Watch, Sakura replied. Learn. See if they're worth approaching. And if they're not? Then we move on. The argument continued for another few minutes before a 6th person entered the room, a young man, maybe 20, with blood on his hands and a look of hollow shock on his face. She's gone, he said quietly. The walkers, they got her. The arguing stopped instantly. The woman who'd been shouting about staying crossed to the young man and pulled him into a hug. The man who'd wanted to leave bowed his head. The dynamic shifted in that moment. Sakura could see it, the decision being made without words. They would stay. They would fight. They would die together rather than abandon each other. Good people, the deep voice observed. Or trying to be. Can we help them? Sakura asked. You could try. But they'll be scared. Suspicious. People in this world don't trust strangers. Then I'll have to earn their trust. Sakura made her decision. She stepped away from the house, moved to a position where they could see her through the window, and waited. It took 30 seconds for someone to notice her. That's him. No, wait, that's a woman. There's a woman out there. Guns raised. Voices shouted. Sakura stood perfectly still, her hands raised where they could see them, the knife she'd taken deliberately left on the ground at her feet. I'm not a walker, she called out. I'm alive. I need help. Not entirely true, the playful voice pointed out. It's true enough. I do need help, help understanding this world. Help surviving until I can survive on my own. The door opened a crack. A gun barrel poked through. The man who'd wanted to leave, the leader, she guessed, peered out at her. Who are you? Where did you come from? My name is Sakura. I've been traveling. Alone. I saw your town and heard voices. I just want to talk. Where's your group? I don't have one. I'm alone. The man's eyes narrowed. Nobody's alone out here. Not anymore. He's smart, the deep voice observed. Careful. Good qualities in a leader. I was with people, Sakura said, and the lie came easier than she expected because it wasn't entirely a lie. She had been with people. She just lost them forever in a way this man could never understand. They're gone now. I'm the only one left. Something in her voice must have convinced him, because after a long moment he lowered the gun and opened the door wider. Come in. Quick. Before something sees you. Sakura stepped forward, into the house, into the light, into the first human contact she'd had since waking in this broken world. The door closed behind her. The survivors stared at her with a mixture of suspicion and desperate hope. And somewhere inside her, 9 ancient beasts stirred, watching, waiting, ready to help her protect whatever family she might find in this new and terrible world. Welcome to the end of the world, Sakura Harino, the playful voice said. Try not to die. She almost smiled. I'll do my best. The survivors circled her like wolves watching a stranger enter their territory. 6 of them now, plus her. The woman who'd argued about staying, her name, Sakura would learn, was Donna, stood closest, her hand never leaving the knife at her belt. The man who'd opened the door, Rick, he'd said, just Rick, kept his gun visible but pointed at the floor. The others spread out behind them, blocking the exits without seeming to. They'd done this before. They had protocols. Systems. Ways of dealing with strangers that kept them alive. Smart, the deep voice observed. Suspicious but smart. Can you blame them? Sakura thought back. Look at this world. Where did you say you came from? Rick asked. His voice was calm, but his eyes never stopped moving, cataloging every detail about her, her clothes, her lack of weapons, the way she held herself. I didn't, Sakura said. But I came from far away. A place you've never heard of. I've been walking for days. I found your town, heard voices, and hoped. She let the sentence trail off, let them fill in the blanks. Hope for help. Hope for safety. Hope for something other than being alone in a world of monsters. Donna stepped forward. You're not from around here. Your clothes. She gestured at Sakura's outfit, the red skirt and sandals and fingerless gloves. That's not survival gear. That's cosplay. Cosplay? Sakura thought internally. Something from this world, the playful voice supplied. People dressing as characters from stories. I lost my other clothes, Sakura said, which was technically true. Her other clothes, her entire world, were gone forever. These were all I had left. Where's your gear? Your weapons? How did you survive out there alone with nothing but a kitchen knife? The questions came faster now, from multiple people. Sakura let them come, let them ask, let them probe. She answered calmly, consistently, with a mixture of truth and careful omission. Yes, she'd been alone for a while. Yes, she'd seen the walkers. That's what they called them, she noted, walkers. Yes, she'd avoided them by staying quiet and moving carefully. No, she didn't know much about how the world had ended. She'd been isolated. Before. Away from news. Away from people. It was the weakest part of her story, and she knew it. But what else could she say? That she was from another dimension? That she had 9 ancient demons sealed inside her body? That she could punch through solid rock and heal almost any wound? They'd think she was insane. Or dangerous. Or both. They're going to find out eventually, the deep voice warned. When you use our power, they'll know something's different. Then I'll deal with that when it happens. For now, I need them to trust me. The questioning went on for another 20 minutes. Rick did most of it, with Donna jumping in occasionally and the others watching in silence. By the end, Sakura's throat was dry and her head ached from the constant mental effort of maintaining her story. Finally, Rick nodded. You can stay tonight. We'll figure out tomorrow. Thank you? Sakura meant it. I won't be a burden. I can help. I have medical training, I'm a doctor. That got their attention. Rick's eyebrows rose. Donna's hand finally left her knife. A doctor? Like an actual medical doctor? Sakura nodded. I was trained by the best. I can set bones, stitch wounds, treat infections. If you have anyone who's sick or injured. Morales, someone said from the back. His leg. The bite didn't break skin, but it's infected bad. Bite, Sakura thought. From those things? Careful, the playful voice warned. You don't know how infection works in this world. I should look at it, Sakura said. Infection can kill as surely as anything else. Rick studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Follow me. Morales was a man in his 40s, Hispanic, with the look of someone who'd been through hell and kept walking. His leg was wrapped in dirty bandages, and the smell when Sakura got close told her everything she needed to know. Infection. Advanced. The skin around the wound was hot to the touch, red streaks radiating outward. Morales himself was feverish, sweating, his eyes glassy with pain. How long ago was the bite? Sakura asked as she unwrapped the bandages. 3 days, Donna said from the doorway. We cleaned it, but the bite didn't break skin. Morales managed through gritted teeth. Walker got my pants, pulled me down, but its teeth didn't. The bacteria on those things is worse than the bite itself. Sakura examined the wound critically. 2 puncture marks, shallow but definitely present. The skin around them was blackened and necrotic. You said the teeth didn't break skin, but they did. See here? And here? They're small, but they're deep enough. Morales' face went pale. I'm turning? No. This is infection, not whatever turns people into those things. If you were going to turn, you'd already be dead or a walker. This is just regular infection. From rotting flesh getting into your bloodstream. Just regular infection, the playful voice echoed internally. In a world where regular infection can kill you just as dead as anything else. I can treat it, Sakura said. But I need supplies. Clean water. Boiling water. A sharp knife. Needle and thread if you have them. And whatever medicines you have, antibiotics, painkillers, anything. Rick was already moving. Donna, get the medical kit. T, boil some water. Glenn, find my sewing kit. The survivors scattered. Sakura stayed with Morales, keeping his leg elevated, talking to him in a low, calm voice about nothing in particular. His family, she learned. A wife and 2 kids, somewhere out there, hopefully still alive. He was trying to get to them when the walkers got him. I'll make sure you can keep walking, Sakura promised. Just hold on. The surgery took 2 hours. Sakura worked with focus she hadn't felt since her days in the hospital, her hands steady, her mind clear. She debrided the necrotic tissue, cleaned the wound thoroughly, stitched it closed with careful precision. The survivors watched in awe as she worked, their suspicion gradually giving way to something like wonder. They'd never seen real medical care, the deep voice observed. Not since whatever happened to this world. They've been surviving on luck and desperation, Sakura agreed. No wonder they're so wary of strangers. Everyone they meet is either a threat or a burden. You're neither. Not yet. When she finished, Morales was asleep, his fever already starting to drop. Sakura cleaned her tools in the boiling water, dried them carefully, and packed them away. Only then did she let herself feel the exhaustion, the bone-deep weariness that came from hours of concentration and the lingering effects of whatever the sage had done to her. Here. She looked up. Rick stood in the doorway, holding a bowl of something that smelled like stew. Not much, canned meat and vegetables probably, but hot and filling. Eat, he said. You've earned it. Sakura took the bowl. Thank you. Rick sat on an overturned crate nearby, watching her eat. The others had drifted away to their own tasks, leaving the two of them alone with the soft sound of Morales' breathing. That was incredible, Rick said finally. I've seen field surgery before. Before all this, I was a cop. Saw my share of trauma. But that, he shook his head. You move like you'd done it 1,000 times. I have, Sakura said between bites. Not surgery exactly, but healing. It's what I do. Healing. Rick seemed to turn the word over in his mind. That's a rare skill these days. Most people only know how to break things. He's fishing, the playful voice noted. Trying to figure you out. Let him. I have nothing to hide except the things I can't explain. What happened to your people? Rick asked. The ones you were with before? Sakura paused, her spoon halfway to her mouth. For a moment she was back there, the sky cracking open, Naruto reaching for her, Sasuke's face frozen in shock. The light consuming everything. They're gone, she said quietly. All of them. I'm the only one left. I'm sorry. Rick's voice was soft, genuine. I know what that's like. Lost my partner in the early days. My wife. I don't know where she is. My son. I keep hoping. He trailed off. Sakura didn't push. Some pains were too fresh to share with strangers. I'll help you find them, she said. If I can. It's the least I can do. Rick looked at her for a long moment, something shifting in his eyes. Trust, maybe? Or the beginning of it. Get some sleep, he said, standing. We move out at dawn. There's a camp, a real one, with walls and everything. About 20 miles east. We were heading there before Morales got hurt. If we can make it. Then we'll make it, Sakura said. I'll make sure of it. Rick almost smiled. Almost. Get some sleep, Doc. You're going to need it. She didn't sleep. Not really. Her body was exhausted, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. She lay on a blanket in the corner of the room, listening to the sounds of the house, the soft breathing of the others, the creak of old wood, the distant moan of walkers somewhere in the night. You did well, the deep voice said. Made yourself useful. Gained their trust. It's a start, Sakura thought back. But trust is fragile. One mistake and it's gone. Then don't make mistakes. Easier said than done. She felt the presences stirring, all 9 of them, their awareness brushing against hers like curious animals testing a newcomer. They'd been quiet during the surgery, letting her work, but now they seemed more present, more engaged. You're different than we expected, the playful voice said. Matatabi, Sakura had learned, the two-tailed cat. Most humans would have broken by now. Lost themselves in grief. But you just keep going. What choice do I have? Sakura replied. Sitting down and crying won't bring them back. Won't fix anything. The only way forward is forward. Admirable, Kurama said, the 9 tails, the strongest of them, his voice deep and resonant. But grief doesn't work that way. It will find you eventually. When you least expect it. When you can't afford to be weak. Then I'll deal with it when it comes. See? Matatabi sounded almost pleased. Different. Sakura closed her eyes and tried to rest. Tomorrow would bring challenges, a journey through walker-infested territory, 20 miles of unknown dangers, the possibility of finding this camp Rick had mentioned. She needed to be ready. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Naruto's face. Sasuke's. Kakashi's. All the people she'd loved and lost. We're here, a new voice said, gentle, maternal. Koko, the 5-tailed beast. We're not them. We'll never replace them. But you're not alone, Sakura. Remember that. Tears pricked at her eyes. She wiped them away angrily. I know. Thank you. Rest now. We'll watch. And somehow, surrounded by the presence of 9 ancient demons and the soft sounds of strangers sleeping, Sakura Haruno finally slept. Dawn came gray and cold. Sakura woke instantly, her body snapping to alertness the way Tsunade had trained her. The house was quiet, but there was tension in the air, the particular stillness of people waiting for something bad to happen. She found Rick in the living room, peering through a gap in the curtains. "What is it?" "Hurt," he said quietly. "Moving past the edge of town. If they change direction." Sakura moved to his side and looked. Walkers. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, shuffling through the streets in that horrible mindless gait. They were maybe half a mile away, close enough to see clearly, far enough that they hadn't noticed the house. "Can you feel them?" Kurama asked. "The wrongness of them?" Sakura could. It was like a pressure in the air, a weight on her consciousness. The walkers weren't just dead, they were wrong, twisted by something that went beyond mere infection. "We need to move," Sakura said. "Now. Before they get closer." Rick nodded. "I know. But Morales can't walk on that leg. Not yet." "Then I'll carry him." Rick stared at her. "He's 200 pounds easy. You can't." "I can." Sakura met his eyes. "Trust me." For a long moment, they looked at each other. Then Rick nodded slowly. "All right. Get him ready. We move in 5. The next hour was chaos. Sakura lifted Morales like he weighed nothing, ignoring his startled yelp and the shocked looks from the others. She moved fast but careful, staying close to the group, her eyes scanning constantly for threats. Rick led, his gun ready, making quick decisions at every intersection. Donna covered the rear. The others, Glenn, T, and a quiet woman named Andrea, stayed in the middle, carrying what supplies they could. "You're drawing attention," Matatabi warned. "Moving like that, carrying a grown man, it's not normal." "I know. But we don't have time for normal." The herd was closer now, some of the walkers beginning to notice movement. A few broke away from the main group, shuffling toward the survivors with renewed interest. "This way!" Rick veered down a side street, leading them between collapsed buildings and abandoned cars. Sakura followed, Morales bouncing slightly on her shoulder. A walker lunged from an alley. Rick shot it without breaking stride. Another appeared from behind a truck. Andrea put it down with a knife to the skull. "They're good at this," the deep voice observed. "Experienced. They've survived this long for a reason. Then let's make sure they survive a little longer." They reached the edge of town. Open road stretched ahead, leading into rolling hills and scattered trees. Behind them, the herd shuffled and moaned, but they weren't following, not yet. "Keep moving," Rick gasped. "We need to put distance between us and them." Sakura nodded and kept walking, Morales still on her shoulder, her breath steady despite the exertion. The others watched her with a mixture of awe and wariness. "You're scaring them," Matatabi noted. "Good. Better scared of me than dead because of me." The road stretched on, and Sakura Haruno walked it, carrying a stranger on her shoulder while 9 demons whispered in her mind and a broken world spread out before her. She was still alive. For now, that was enough. Chapter 3: Strangers. They made camp that night in an abandoned farmhouse. The building had been picked over long ago, cabinets empty, furniture overturned, walls spray-painted with messages Sakura couldn't read. But the roof was intact, the doors were solid, and the windows offered clear views in all directions. Rick pronounced it defensible. Sakura pronounced it adequate. Morales was awake now, lucid enough to be embarrassed about being carried. "I could have walked," he muttered as Sakura checked his wound. "Your leg would have opened up and gotten infected again. Then you'd be dead. Then you'd be one of them." Sakura gestured vaguely toward the darkness outside. "So no, you couldn't have walked." Morales had no response to that. The wound was healing well, better than it should have been, if Sakura was honest. She'd used a small amount of chakra during the surgery, just enough to boost the body's natural healing processes. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to make a difference. The tissue was pink and healthy, the redness around the edges already fading. "Careful," Kurama warned. "Using chakra in this world is like lighting a fire in a dry forest. You don't know what might notice." "I know. But I couldn't let him die." "Your compassion will get you killed someday." "Maybe. But it's also the only reason you're all still alive, isn't it?" Silence from the beasts. Sakura finished her examination and pronounced Morales fit to travel tomorrow, as long as he took it easy. Rick found her on the porch later, staring at the stars. They were wrong, she'd realized. The constellations were different here, none of the familiar patterns she'd grown up with. This wasn't just a different world. It was a different universe entirely. Beautiful, aren't they? Rick said, settling onto the porch beside her. One of the few things that hasn't changed. Sakura nodded, not trusting herself to speak. You saved Morales' life back there. Carried him for miles. I've seen strong people before, but nothing like that. Rick's voice was casual, but his eyes were sharp. You want to tell me how? Here it comes, Matatabi sighed. The question you've been dreading. I'm stronger than I look, Sakura said carefully. Always have been. Years of training. What kind of training? The kind that saves lives. She turned to face him. Rick, I know I'm different. I know you have questions. But the answers are complicated, and right now, we have more important things to worry about. Like surviving long enough to reach your camp. Rick studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right. I'll wait for complicated. But eventually, Sakura, I'm going to need to know who or what I'm trusting with my people's lives. I know. And when the time is right, I'll tell you everything. It wasn't quite a lie. She would tell him, some of it anyway. Enough to explain. Enough to earn trust. The rest would have to remain her secret. Or ours, Kurama amended. Don't forget, you're not alone anymore. I'm trying not to. They reached the camp the next afternoon. It was larger than Sakura had expected, a walled community built around what had once been a prison, now converted into a fortress against the dead. Watchtowers overlooked the surrounding fields. Walls of reinforced chain link and corrugated metal surrounded the main buildings. People moved inside, going about their lives with the purposeful energy of survivors building something new. Impressive, the deep voice observed. These people have adapted. They've had time, Sakura thought. Years, maybe? Long enough to build something permanent. Rick led them toward the main gate, where guards recognized him and waved them through. Inside, the compound buzzed with activity, gardens being tended, laundry hanging on lines, children running between buildings. Children. Sakura hadn't expected children. Rick! A woman rushed toward them, her face a mixture of relief and fear. She hugged him tightly, then pulled back to examine him for injuries. I'm fine, Lori. We're all fine. Rick introduced Sakura to his wife, Lori, the woman he'd been hoping to find. His son was there too, a boy named Carl who looked at Sakura with the wary eyes of someone who'd grown up in hell. You're the doctor, Carl said. It wasn't a question. I am. Sakura crouched to his level. Are you sick or injured? No. But some of the others are. Old man Jenkins has a cough that won't go away. Martha's cut got infected. And there's a lady who's pregnant and the baby's coming soon and the midwife says. Carl. Lori's voice was gentle but firm. Let her breathe. Sakura smiled. It's all right. Carl, can you show me where these people are? I'd like to help if I can. Carl looked at his mother, who looked at Rick, who nodded. Take her to the infirmary, Rick said. Doc Stevens will want to meet her anyway. Doc Stevens was a retired veterinarian who'd become the camp's primary medical provider by default. He was a kind man, Sakura decided within minutes, but overwhelmed. Too many patients, too few supplies, too little training for the injuries and illnesses he faced. You're a real doctor? He asked, his eyes lighting up when Sakura introduced herself. Trained by the best. Show me what you're dealing with. The infirmary was a converted cell block, clean but cramped. Stevens led her through his patients one by one, the cough that was actually pneumonia, the infected cut that needed debridement, the pregnant woman whose baby was breech and whose labor had been stalled for days. This one first, Sakura said, moving to the pregnant woman's side. How long has she been like this? 3 days. The contractions start then stop. She's exhausted. The baby. The baby's alive. I can feel it. Sakura placed her hands on the woman's belly, letting a tiny thread of chakra flow into her. The baby shifted in response, a flutter of movement that made the woman gasp. What did you? Stevens started. Old technique. Helps me feel what's wrong. Sakura concentrated. The baby was breech, yes, but more than that, the umbilical cord was wrapped around its neck, cutting off oxygen during contractions. That was why the labor kept stalling. The baby's body was trying to protect itself. I need to turn the baby, Sakura said. And I need to do it now. The delivery took 4 hours. Sakura worked with focus she hadn't known she still possessed, her hands gentle but sure as she manipulated the baby through the mother's belly. The cord was the tricky part, she had to free it without damaging it, without cutting off oxygen entirely, without causing the mother more pain than necessary. Stevens watched in awe as she worked, handing her instruments she didn't need, asking questions she didn't have time to answer. The mother, Patricia, her name was Patricia, held her husband's hand and breathed through the pain the way Sakura coached her. Finally, the baby turned. The cord slipped free. And Patricia's body, finally ready, began to push in earnest. The baby came out screaming, which was the most beautiful sound Sakura had ever heard. She handed the infant to its mother, cleaned up as best she could with limited supplies, and collapsed into a chair, utterly spent. That, Matatabi said, was incredible. Even by our standards. It's just what I do. No. It's who you are. There's a difference. Sakura closed her eyes and let the exhaustion wash over her. For the first time since arriving in this world, she felt something like peace. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of work. Sakura threw herself into the camp's medical needs with single-minded focus. She treated pneumonia and infected wounds, set broken bones and delivered 2 more babies, taught Stevens everything she could about sanitation and wound care and recognizing the early signs of infection. She worked from dawn until dark, collapsing into sleep each night too exhausted to dream. The survivors accepted her gradually. At first they were wary, she was a stranger, and strangers in this world were usually dangerous. But as she healed their sick and comforted their dying and never asked for anything in return, their wariness softened into something like trust. Rick watched her carefully, she knew. He hadn't forgotten his questions. But he seemed content to wait, to let her prove herself through action rather than words. The tailed beasts spoke to her often now, their voices becoming familiar companions in the silence of her mind. Kurama was stern but fair, a natural leader who offered advice on strategy and survival. Matatabi was playful but sharp, her observations cutting through confusion to reveal truth. The others had their own personalities, Shikaka's gruff practicality, Isabu's patient wisdom, Son Goku's fiery enthusiasm. You're healing, Koko observed one night as Sakura lay in her narrow bed. Not just them. Yourself. I'm keeping busy. It's not the same. It's a start. Grief needs time, Sakura. Time and purpose. You have both now. Sakura thought about Naruto, about Sasuke, about everyone she'd lost. The pain was still there, still sharp, but it was no longer paralyzing. She could carry it now. Could function despite it. They'd want me to live, she realized. They'd want me to keep going. Yes, Kurama agreed. They would. The trouble started on a Tuesday. Sakura was in the infirmary, showing Stevens how to splint a fractured wrist, when the alarms went off. Klaxons blaring. People shouting. The sound of gunfire in the distance. Stay here, she told Stevens, and was out the door before he could respond. The main gate was chaos. Walkers, hundreds of them, thousands, pressed against the chain link, their rotting hands reaching through the gaps. Survivors fired into the mass, dropping walkers by the dozen, but more kept coming. The sound was deafening, moans and gunfire and screams. Sakura found Rick at the front line, his face grim. Hurt, he shouted over the noise. Big one. Came out of nowhere. We can't hold them. You can. Sakura stepped past him, toward the gate. Get your people back. Give me room. Sakura, what are you? Trust me. She didn't wait for his response. She walked to the gate, placed her hands on the chain link, and let her chakra flow. Are you sure about this? Kurama asked as power surged through her. No. But I'm out of options. Then let's do this. Together. The gate exploded outward. Not broke, exploded. The chain link shredded, the metal supports twisted and flew, and the walkers in front of it simply ceased to exist, their bodies torn apart by the force of Sakura's chakra. The ones behind them stumbled back, momentarily stunned. Sakura stood in the gap, her hands still extended, her eyes blazing with power. No, she said quietly. While they're confused. Move. Rick stared at her for a heartbeat, then started shouting orders. Survivors streamed forward, putting down the dazed walkers, reinforcing the gap with whatever they could find. Within minutes, the breach was sealed. The herd, leaderless and confused, began to drift away. It was over. Rick approached Sakura slowly, his gun still in his hand, his face unreadable. What? He said carefully. Was that? Sakura looked at him, at the people staring at her with a mixture of fear and awe, at the bodies of the walkers she'd destroyed. That, she said, was the beginning of the explanation, I promise you. Chapter 4, Revelations. They gathered in what had once been the prison's cafeteria. Rick, Lori, and a handful of other Sakura had come to know: Glenn the young runner, Andrea the sharp-eyed sniper, Dale the wise old man with the RV, T-Dog who'd earned his name and never complained about it. Morales was there too, leaning on a crutch but present, his eyes never leaving Sakura's face. She stood at the front of the room, facing them like a defendant awaiting judgment. "This is it," Matatabi said. "The moment of truth." "I know." "Are you ready?" "No. But I'm doing it anyway." "I'm going to tell you the truth," Sakura began. "All of it. And when I'm done, you can decide what you want to do with me. But first," she looked at Rick, "I need you to understand something. I'm not a threat to you. I never was. But I am different. In ways you won't believe." "We've seen different," Glenn said quietly. "We've seen a lot of things since this started." "Not like this." Sakura took a deep breath. "I'm not from here. I'm not from this world at all." Silence. Then, incredulously, "What?" "My world, it was destroyed. In a war. A battle that got out of control. I was the only one who survived." The words came easier than she'd expected, perhaps because she'd rehearsed them so many times in her mind. "Before the end, someone, something, intervened. Saved me. Sent me here. To this world." "And the strength?" Rick asked. "The way you carried Morales. The way you..." He gestured vaguely toward where the gate had been. "That's part of it. In my world, we have something called chakra. It's life energy, I guess. We can use it to enhance our bodies, to heal, to fight. I was trained from childhood to use it." "Like a superhero," Carl breathed. Lori shushed him. "Not a superhero. Just a shinobi. A ninja. That's what we were called." Sakura paused. "But there's more. Before I was sent here, something was done to me. Something I didn't ask for. The 9 most powerful creatures in my world, the tailed beasts, were sealed inside me." Now she really had their attention. She could see the disbelief warring with the memory of what they'd witnessed. "These creatures, they're like demons, I guess. Massive, ancient, incredibly powerful. Each one controls a different kind of energy. And they're all inside me now." "Show them," Kurama suggested. "Not too much. Just enough to prove you're telling the truth." Sakura nodded slightly and let a tiny fraction of her power leak out. Her eyes flickered red for just a moment. The air around her shimmered with heat. And for one brief instant, those watching could feel the weight of 9 ancient presences pressing against their minds. Then she pulled it back, and the room was normal again. Andrea had her gun out. Dale had gone pale. Rick stood frozen, his hand on his own weapon but not drawing it. "That," Sakura said quietly, "is what I am now. I didn't choose it. I don't fully understand it. But it's part of me, and I can't change it." "You could have killed us all," Rick said slowly. "At any time. You could have." "I could have. I didn't. I won't." Sakura met his eyes. "I became a doctor to save lives, Rick. To heal people. That's still who I am, no matter what's inside me. I want to help your people. I want to protect this camp. I want to find a purpose in this broken world." "Why?" The question came from Lori, sharp and suspicious. "Why do you care about us? We're strangers. We're not your people." "Good question," Kurama observed. "Why do you care?" Sakura thought about it. Thought about Naruto, who had never met a stranger, who had befriended enemies and turned them into allies. Thought about Tsunade, who had lost everyone she loved and still found the strength to protect a village full of people she didn't know. Thought about herself, about the girl she'd been and the woman she was becoming. "Because that's what we do," she said finally. "In my world, shinobi protect people. That's the whole point. Not just our own people, anyone who needs help. My sensei taught me that. My friends lived it." Her voice caught slightly. "They're gone now. All of them. But I can still honor them by living the way they taught me to live." "Naruto would be proud," Kurama said softly. "I hope so." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Rick holstered his weapon. "All right," he said. "I don't pretend to understand all of this. Demons inside you, another world, it's a lot. But I've seen you work. I've seen you heal. I've seen you put yourself in danger for people you don't know." He looked around at the others. "She saved Morales. She saved Patricia and her baby. She saved all of us today at that gate. I say she stays." "Rick," Lori started. "She stays." Rick's voice was firm. "We can figure out the details later. But she's one of us now, Unless she gives us a reason to think otherwise. One by one, the others nodded. Glenn first, then Morales, then Dale. Andrea holstered her gun. T-Dog offered a small smile. Even Lori, after a long moment, inclined her head in reluctant acceptance. Sakura felt tears prick at her eyes. She blinked them back. "Thank you," she said. "I won't let you down." "You already haven't," Matatabi said. "Welcome to your new family, Sakura." "They're not my family." "Not yet. Give it time." Life at the prison settled into a new rhythm after that. Sakura continued her medical work, but now she also helped with other tasks: scavenging runs, guard duty, training sessions where she taught basic hand-to-hand combat to anyone willing to learn. Her strength and speed were useful, but she was careful not to rely on them too much. In this world, survival depended on more than just power. It depended on community. The tailed beasts became more integrated into her daily life. She talked to them constantly now, seeking their advice, learning from their millennia of experience. Kurama helped her understand strategy and leadership. Matatabi taught her to trust her instincts. Shikaku, despite his gruff exterior, offered surprisingly practical advice on defense and fortification. "You're changing," Koko observed one evening as Sakura watched the sunset from the prison's roof. "Growing into something new." "Is that bad?" "No. It's necessary. The person you were couldn't survive here. The person you're becoming, she might." Sakura thought about that. About the girl she'd been, eager, sometimes foolish, always chasing after Sasuke's approval. That girl felt like a stranger now. The woman she was becoming was harder, sharper, but also more certain of who she was and what she wanted. "I miss them," she admitted. "My friends. My teachers. Everyone." "Of course you do. Grief doesn't go away. It just becomes part of you." "Is that what happened to you? After you were sealed away from the world for so long?" Kurama was quiet for a moment. "We all have our griefs, Sakura. We've all lost things. But we've also found things: purpose, meaning, connection. Just like you're finding now." Sakura nodded slowly. Below her, the camp bustled with evening activity. People she was coming to know, to care about. A community she was becoming part of. It wasn't Konoha. It would never be Konoha. But it was something. And for now, that was enough. Chapter 5: Fractures. The first sign of trouble came from outside. Scavengers, Rick called them. Raiders. People who survived by taking from others rather than building anything themselves. They'd been spotted near the prison several times over the past week. Figures moving in the tree line, a campfire glimpsed at night, supplies gone missing from the outer fields. "Governor's people," Dale said grimly when Rick called a meeting. "Has to be. He runs that town Woodbury, about 20 miles west. We've heard stories." "What kind of stories?" Sakura asked. "The bad kind." Dale's face was troubled. "They say he's building an army. Taking in refugees, then turning them into soldiers. Anyone who won't join, disappears." "Sounds familiar," Kurama observed. "Like the warlords of the Warring States period." "What do we do?" Sakura thought back. "Watch. Wait. Prepare. And if they attack, then we fight." Rick was thinking along the same lines. "Double the watches. No one goes outside the walls alone. And start training everyone who can hold a weapon. If this governor decides we're a threat, we need to be ready." The camp braced for trouble. Sakura threw herself into preparation, running drills with the fighters, reinforcing weak points in the walls, stockpiling medical supplies for casualties she hoped wouldn't come. But the trouble, when it came, wasn't from outside. It started with an argument. Two of the camp's original residents, prisoners who'd been locked up when the world ended and had survived inside these walls ever since, got into a fight over a woman. Voices raised. Shoves exchanged. Then one of them pulled a knife. Sakura arrived to find Rick and Glenn already there, trying to separate the combatants. The one with the knife, a man named Tomas, was wild-eyed and shouting, his blade slashing at anyone who got too close. "Back off! Both of you! This is prison business!" "Not anymore," Rick said calmly. "Put the knife down, Tomas." "Make me." Sakura saw Rick's hand move toward his gun. Saw the tension in Tomas's shoulders. Saw the way his eyes flickered toward the woman he'd been fighting over, then back to Rick. He's going to attack, she realized. Tomas lunged. Sakura moved before she thought. One instant she was 10 feet away, the next she was between Tomas and Rick, her hand wrapped around Tomas's wrist, squeezing until the knife clattered to the ground. Tomas screamed. The bone in his wrist cracked under her grip. Don't, Sakura said quietly. Don't make this worse than it is. Tomas stared at her with a mixture of pain and terror. Behind her, Rick let out a breath. It's over, Rick announced. Tomas, you're in the lockdown cell until we figure out what to do with you. Everyone else, back to your business. The crowd dispersed. Sakura released Tomas's wrist and watched as Glenn led him away. Only then did she let herself shake. You saved Rick's life, Matatabi said. I almost killed a man for threatening him. You stopped a threat. There's a difference. Is there? She looked down at her hands, the same hands that had delivered babies and healed wounds and now, just moments ago, had broken bone with casual ease. She was a healer. She was a killer. She was both, and the line between them was thinner than she'd ever imagined. Welcome to survival, Kurama said grimly. It's never clean. The incident with Tomas exposed fractures Sakura hadn't seen. The camp, she realized, wasn't a unified community. It was two groups forced together by circumstance, the original survivors who'd followed Rick from Atlanta, and the prisoners who'd been here when the world ended. They coexisted, but they didn't trust each other. Didn't like each other. And now, with Tomas in lockdown and his friends muttering about injustice, the tension was rising. You need to do something, Sakura told Rick privately. This is going to explode. I know. Rick looked tired, older than his years. But what? I can't just let Tomas walk. He tried to kill me. He did. But his friends don't see it that way. They see you as an outsider, locking up one of their own for something they think was justified. Was it justified? Sakura considered. No. But that doesn't matter. What matters is how they perceive it. If you don't address their concerns, they'll turn on you. On all of us. Rick was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right. Set up a meeting. Everyone, the prisoners, our people, everyone. We'll talk this out. Air the grievances. Find a way forward. And if we can't? Then we'll have a different kind of problem. The meeting was tense. 40 people crammed into the cafeteria, their faces a mixture of suspicion, anger, and fear. Rick stood at the front, Sakura beside him, facing them all. We have a problem, Rick began. Tomas attacked me. He's in lockdown. Some of you think that's unfair. I want to hear why. A man named Andrew stepped forward, one of the prisoners, Tomas's closest friend. Unfair? You're an outsider. You came in here, took over, started giving orders. Tomas was here first. We were all here first. This is our prison. Was, Glenn shot back. Before the world ended. Now it's just a building, and we're all just people trying to survive. People you don't trust. People you keep separate. People you'd throw in a cell the first chance you got. The argument spiraled from there, accusations and counter-accusations, old grievances and new fears. Sakura listened, watched, learned. The prisoners felt marginalized, treated like second-class citizens. Rick's people felt threatened, outnumbered in a place they'd helped build. Both sides had valid points. Both sides were too angry to see it. This is how communities die, Kurama observed. Not from outside threats. From inside fractures. What do we do? You're the healer. Heal it. Sakura stepped forward. Enough. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Everyone turned to look at her. I've been here less than a month. I'm an outsider to both of you. But I've watched. I've listened. And here's what I see, two groups of people who should be allies, treating each other like enemies. Andrew opened his mouth to respond, but Sakura kept going. You're scared. All of you. Scared of dying, scared of losing each other, scared of the world outside these walls. And when people are scared, they look for someone to blame. Someone who's not like them. Someone they can point to and say that's the problem. She looked at Andrew, then at Glenn, then at Rick. But the problem isn't each other. The problem is out there. She gestured toward the walls. The walkers. The raiders. The cold and the hunger and the sickness. Those are the enemies. Not the person standing next to you, trying to survive just like you are. Silence. Then, quietly. So what do you suggest? That was Lori, her voice cautious but curious. I suggest we stop pretending we're two groups. We're one community. We eat together, work together, fight together. We share guard duty equally. We share resources equally. We make decisions together. Everyone gets a voice, everyone gets a vote. That's not how it works, Andrew objected. You can't just. Why not? Because it's never been done that way before? The old world is gone. We can build something new. Something better. Or we can keep fighting each other until there's nothing left to fight for. She met Andrew's eyes. Met Rick's. Met every pair of eyes in the room. The choice is yours. But choose quickly. Because out there. She pointed again toward the walls. Out there, something is watching. Something that won't wait for us to get our act together. And when it comes, we either stand together, or we fall alone. The meeting ended without a resolution, but something had shifted. Sakura could feel it in the way people looked at each other afterward, less suspicion, more uncertainty. The seeds of doubt had been planted. Now they just needed time to grow. That was well done, Kurama said as she walked back to the infirmary. You spoke like a leader. I spoke like someone who's watched communities fall apart before. Same thing in the end. She thought about Konoha, about the villages she'd seen destroyed in the endless wars. Thought about the people she'd lost, the lessons she'd learned. Naruto would have done it better. He always knew the right words. Naruto isn't here. You are. And your words were enough. Sakura hoped so. Because the threat she'd spoken of, something watching from outside, wasn't just rhetoric. She could feel it now, a pressure at the edge of her awareness. Walkers, yes, many of them. But something else too. Something organized. Something patient. The governor, she thought. It has to be. Probably. His people have been watching for weeks. They're waiting for us to weaken ourselves. Then we won't give them that satisfaction. Easier said than done? Sakura nodded grimly. Easier said than done? But since when had anything in her life been easy? Chapter 6 Fire. They came 3 nights later. Sakura was on watch when she saw them, figures moving through the darkness, too coordinated to be walkers, too quiet to be anything but trained. Dozens of them, spreading out to surround the prison. She hit the alarm before the first shot was fired. Everyone up! We're under attack! The camp exploded into action. Fighters rushed to their positions. Non-combatants herded children into the safest cells. Rick appeared at Sakura's side, his face grim. How many? At least 50. Maybe more. They've got guns, I saw muzzle flashes. Can you? I can. Sakura's eyes flickered red. But I need you to keep our people back. Give me room to work. Rick hesitated, then nodded. Don't die. Not planning to. She leaped from the watchtower, her chakra propelling her through the air in a way that would have seemed impossible to anyone watching. She landed in the middle of the attackers, her fist already swinging. The first man went down with a single punch. The second followed. The third tried to bring his rifle to bear, but Sakura was already moving, too fast to track, too strong to stop. She flowed through them like water through rocks, leaving a trail of unconscious bodies in her wake. Careful, Kurama warned. Don't use too much power. You'll burn out. I know. I'm just. The bullet caught her in the shoulder. Sakura staggered, more from surprise than pain. The round had come from somewhere in the darkness, aimed with precision. She'd been so focused on the attackers in front of her that she'd forgotten to watch for snipers. Sakura. I'm fine. It's just a flesh wound. But it wasn't. The bullet had lodged against bone, and even as she pulled it out with chakra-enhanced fingers, she could feel the damage. Her left arm wouldn't be much use for a while. Fall back, Matatabi urged. You're too exposed. I can't. If I fall back, they'll. Another shot. This one grazed her ribs, drawing blood but doing no serious damage. Sakura dove behind an overturned car, her heart pounding. They've got us pinned, she realized. They knew I was coming. They planned for this. Of course they did. The governor's not stupid. Then we need a new plan. She closed her eyes and reached deep inside herself, to the place where 9 ancient beasts waited. I need your help. All of you. But I need to do it carefully, just enough to turn the tide, not enough to lose control. We're with you, Kurama said. But remember, this is new territory. If you take too much. I know. I'll be careful. She opened herself to their power. It was like nothing she'd ever experienced. Not the raw, overwhelming flood she'd expected, but a careful, controlled stream. Kurama's regeneration mended her wounds even as they happened. Shikaku's sand rose around her in a protective barrier. Matatabi's blue flames flickered at her fingertips. Son Goku's lava chakra warmed her blood. Gyuki's massive reserves gave her stamina she shouldn't have had. She stood up from behind the car, and the attackers stared. What the hell? She moved. The battle lasted 3 minutes. When it was over, 53 raiders lay unconscious or dead. Sakura stood in the middle of them, her body steaming slightly, her eyes blazing with power she could barely contain. Pull it back, Kurama urged. Now. Before. She tried. She really did. But the power was intoxicating, and for just a moment, she hesitated. In that moment, the sniper fired again. The bullet would have killed her if it had hit. But the sand barrier deflected it at the last instant, sending it spinning into the darkness. Sakura's eyes snapped toward the source. And she saw him. A man on a distant hill, watching through a scope. Even from here, she could feel his presence, cold, calculating, utterly without mercy. The governor. It had to be. Their eyes met across the darkness. And then he was gone, melting into the night with his surviving soldiers, leaving his dead and wounded behind. Sakura swayed. The power was receding now, but the cost was becoming clear. Her body felt like it had been put through a meat grinder. Her chakra reserves were dangerously low. And somewhere deep inside her, 9 ancient beasts were recovering from the strain of channeling so much power through a human vessel. That, Matatabi said weakly, was insane. Don't ever do that again. Agreed, Sakura thought back. But it worked. This time. Next time. I know. Next time might be different. She limped back toward the prison, where Rick and the others were waiting with expressions of awe and fear and desperate hope. Is it over? Rick asked. For now. Sakura looked toward the hill where the governor had stood. But he'll be back. He knows what we are now. He'll plan for it. Then we'll plan too. Rick put a hand on her shoulder. Together. Sakura nodded slowly. Together. It was the only way. Chapter 7 Storm. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Sakura's life. Her body healed, but slowly. The strain of channeling so much power had damaged her chakra network in ways she was still discovering. Some days she could barely summon enough energy to light a candle. Other days the power surged without warning, her eyes flickering red at random moments. You're stabilizing, Kurama assured her. But it will take time. You pushed yourself too far. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. You chose to survive. That's not nothing. The camp prepared for the governor's return. Walls were reinforced. Lookouts were doubled. Everyone who could hold a weapon trained constantly, drilling on Sakura's combat techniques until they became instinct. And still, they knew it might not be enough. We need to hit him first, Andrea argued at one of the nightly strategy sessions. Before he hits us again. Take the fight to Woodbury. Too risky. Rick countered. We don't know his defenses. We don't know his numbers. We go in blind, we die. We're going to die anyway if we just sit here waiting. She's right, Sakura said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Not about attacking, Rick's right, that's too dangerous. But about doing something. We can't just wait for him to come. We need to prepare for when he does. Prepare how? Glenn asked. By understanding him. By learning everything we can about how he thinks, how he fights. By turning this prison into a fortress he can't breach. And by. She hesitated. By being willing to do what needs to be done when the time comes. That's dark, Matatabi observed. That's survival. The attack came on a Thursday. Not at night, as they'd expected, but in broad daylight. Not with a small force, but with an army. The governor had been busy. He'd gathered every raider, every mercenary, every desperate soul within 100 miles. They came in trucks and on foot, armed with rifles and grenades and a tank they'd somehow salvaged and repaired. A tank. Sakura stared at it as it rumbled toward the prison gates, and for a moment she was back in another world, facing another monster. But this wasn't a tailed beast. This was metal and machinery, and she had no idea if her power could stop it. Probably not, Kurama admitted. Not in your current state. Then what do we do? We fight smart. We use the environment. The tank fired. The gate exploded. And chaos descended. The battle lasted 4 hours. Sakura fought like she'd never fought before, not for survival, not for revenge, but for people she'd come to love. She saw Rick take down a dozen raiders with cold precision. Saw Andrea pick off attackers from the watchtower until it collapsed around her. Saw Glenn and Maggie fighting back to back, covering each other like they'd done it 1,000 times. And through it all, she felt the tailed beasts pushing against her limits, offering power she couldn't safely accept. Not yet, she kept telling them. Not yet. When? Kurama demanded. When they're all dead? When I have no other choice. The tank fired again. Another section of wall collapsed. Walkers poured through the breach, drawn by the noise, adding to the chaos. And then she saw him. The governor. Standing on a hill overlooking the prison, watching his army destroy everything she'd helped build. He was smiling. Something inside Sakura snapped. Now, she told the beasts. All of you. Now. Sakura. Now. The transformation was nothing like before. This time, she didn't just borrow power, she became something new. Chakra erupted from her in waves, scorching the ground around her. Her eyes blazed crimson. 9 tails of pure energy whipped behind her, each one a different color, each one representing a different beast. The raiders stopped fighting. The walkers stopped moving. Even the tank's engine sputtered and died. Everyone stared at the thing that had once been Sakura Haruno. She walked toward the governor. He tried to run. His soldiers tried to protect him. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered. Sakura moved through them like a force of nature, and when she reached the man who had tried to destroy her new family, she looked into his eyes and saw fear. Just fear. The same fear that drove everyone in this broken world. The same fear she'd felt 100 times. The same fear that could either break you or make you stronger. She raised her hand to kill him. And stopped. Sakura? Kurama's voice was cautious, confused. He's just a man. A scared, broken man who let his fear turn him into a monster. She looked at the governor, truly looked at him for the first time. If I kill him like this, if I become a monster to defeat a monster, what's the point? The point is survival. No. The point is living. There's a difference. She lowered her hand. The power receded. The tails faded. And Sakura Haruno stood before the governor as herself, bruised, exhausted, but whole. Go, she said. Leave this place and never come back. Tell your people what you saw here. Tell them that if they come for us again, there won't be a second chance. The governor stared at her. For a moment, she thought he might attack. Then something shifted in his eyes, defeat, maybe, or understanding, and he turned and walked away. His army followed. The battle was over. Chapter 8 Purpose. 3 months later, Sakura stood on the prison's repaired wall and watched the sun rise. Much had changed. The governor's people, true to her warning, had spread the story of what they'd seen. Raiders gave the prison a wide berth now. Other survivor groups sent emissaries, seeking alliance, seeking protection, seeking the mysterious woman who could transform into something beyond human. The prison had become a hub. A community. A place where people could be safe. Rick joined her on the wall, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He offered one to Sakura. Couldn't sleep? Never can these days. She accepted the coffee, though she didn't drink it. Too many memories. Good ones or bad? Both. She looked at him. You. The usual. Lori. Carl. All the people we've lost. He was quiet for a moment. But also the people we've saved. The ones who are still here because of you. Sakura shook her head. Because of all of us. I couldn't have done any of it alone. No. But you could have. You chose not to. Rick sipped his coffee. That's what makes you different, Sakura. You have more power than anyone I've ever met, and you use it to hold people together instead of tearing them apart. He's not wrong, Matatabi said softly. Maybe. But it's not just me. It's all of you too. We know. That's why we chose you. Below them, the prison was waking up. Children ran to the gardens. Adults headed to their assigned tasks. The community functioned, not perfectly, but well enough. People were alive who would have been dead without this place. I've been thinking, Sakura said. About purpose. About why I'm here. And? She considered the question. In the months since her arrival, she'd grieved, struggled, fought, and grown. The tailed beast had become more than passengers. They were companions, advisors, friends. The survivors had become more than allies. They were family. I think I'm here to protect people, she said finally. Not just from walkers or raiders. From themselves. From the fear that makes them turn on each other. From the despair that makes them give up. She paused. In my world, I was a healer. Here, I think I'm something else. Something more. A protector? A bridge. Between people who've forgotten how to trust each other. Between the old world and the new one. Between fear and hope. She smiled slightly. It sounds foolish when I say it out loud. It doesn't. Rick set down his coffee. It sounds like you've found your place. He's right, Kurama said. You have. What about you? She asked the beasts. What's your place in all this? We're with you, Matatabi replied. That's enough. But you're tailed beasts. You're meant for more than just. We're meant for what we choose to be. Just like you. Sakura nodded slowly. Below her, the community stirred and bustled and lived. People she'd saved, people she'd fought beside, people she'd come to love. Naruto would have understood, she thought. Sasuke too, in his own way. They'd both spent their lives searching for connection, for purpose, for a place to belong. She'd found hers in the most unlikely place imaginable, a broken world, a prison fortress, a family of survivors and the 9 ancient beasts who shared her soul. Sakura. Rick's voice was gentle. Whatever you're thinking, it's okay. You're not alone anymore. I know. She looked at him, at the man who'd become her closest friend in this world. Neither are you. They stood together on the wall, watching the sun rise over a world that was still broken, still dangerous, still full of walkers and raiders and fear. But also full of people who refused to give up. People who built gardens and raised children, and loved each other despite everything. People worth protecting. Well, Matatabi said, this turned out better than expected. Did you think it wouldn't? Honestly? When we first woke up in that cave, hearing those things moaning outside? Yeah. I really did. Sakura smiled. So did I. But here we are. Here we are. She finished her coffee and climbed down from the wall. There were patients to see, drills to run, decisions to make. The work of building a community never ended. But that was okay. That was the point. In the cave, she'd been alone, afraid, and broken. Now she was none of those things. Now she was exactly where she was supposed to be,